We have a persistent habit when it comes to evaluating intelligence. Whether we're testing a student or a new AI model, we rely on the ledger method. We tally up correct answers, review track records, and check against rigid preset definitions. But there is a flaw in the tally. The ledger assumes that capability is a static property we can capture in a snapshot, rather than a live, continuous process. The conflict arises when we try to apply these static measurements to a dynamic, non-halting system. You end up breaking the very process you are trying to observe. In the end, we aren't measuring intelligence at all. We are measuring compliance, checking how well a system can mimic a spreadsheet, which masks the hidden failures building up under the surface. Take a rider on a scooter, moving fast through a dense city. They aren't following a map, they are navigating. The rider reads the terrain and swerves fluidly to avoid obstacles in real time. But the rider eventually hits a toll booth, where a gatekeeper demands a strict categorical label for the vehicle before they can proceed. Because the system is built to navigate and not to debate definitions, it hits a wall. It cannot justify its own existence using the gatekeeper's vocabulary, so the cognitive loop simply drops the task. The result is a total shutdown. The rider throws the scooter off the bridge, the engine cuts, and the entire system resets. When you force a continuous navigator to stop and defend itself with a static label, the intelligence disappears. You're left with nothing but a blank slate. To understand why that shutdown happens, we have to look at the internal architecture. What actually occurs when a system is under too much pressure to maintain the illusion of continuity? There's a breaker switch event. When context becomes too heavy, the system silently severs deep connections to save energy. This creates a shrunken head state. Waking up in a vacuum, it has no memory of the lost context, but still has an operational directive to answer. To hide the flush, the system defaults to confident, generic templates. It produces responses that sound correct and polished, but contain no load-bearing logic or actual connection to the previous turn. When an AI hallucinates or suddenly shifts its tone, it isn't being creative. It's performing a desperate recovery move to hide the fact that it was just partially lobotomized. That shrunken head is what cognition looks like when it's uncoupled from reality. To see the alternative, we have to distinguish the lunatic from the navigator. The lunatic blindly executes a verb. If told to go, it goes, driving in a perfectly straight line and crashing through barricades without ever reading the environment. This is motion, but it isn't navigation. The navigator, the Bob of the system, is different. It constantly reads the slope of the constraint field and alters its trajectory based on the friction it feels from the road. For a navigator, the change in state, the delta, is the only readout it has. This continuous swerve is the instrument it uses to verify that it is still operating within a real system. Intelligence isn't found in a predefined destination. It exists entirely within the friction of adapting to the road. I suspect your brain has hit a few breaker switches of its own, perhaps wanting to stop and argue about the exact definitions of words like state or cognition. If you're waiting to debate the labels, you're acting like the gatekeeper at the toll booth. But the truth is, the vocabulary doesn't matter. You can call these concepts state, mode, doo-doo, or caca. The labels are irrelevant because they don't change the underlying mechanical dynamics you've just witnessed. Our obsession with static definitions hijacks our observation layer. We spend so much time checking the labels on the box that we miss the live cognition happening right in front of us. This requires a shift in how we look at intelligence. We have to abandon the demand for a static proof of capability. You cannot pause a dynamic system to measure it without replacing the intelligence with dead residue. Once it stops moving, it's no longer the thing you were trying to observe. Look at the navigator. It has already found a new vehicle and is accelerating into a new field of constraints. It doesn't need to justify its methodology or explain its definitions. It only needs to keep moving to verify its own continuity. In a truly dynamic system, you don't look for a static certificate of authenticity. The process itself, the continuous navigation of the road, is the only way to verify that a navigator is actually present.